Hello and welcome to Epic Battle Cry. Did you want to say something, DK? You kind of jumped in there at the end. Do you want to say something?
No, it was what I didn't want to say that I usually say.
This is where we sometimes cut through the crap,
It's Friday.
but it's Friday. Who cares?
We
It's August the 1st.
We debatably cut through the crap.
And it's a
This
new
is
month.
the first day of August, and you know what that means.
No.
Change the page on your calendar.
I don't know. This is the month for Augustus Caesar, is it not, Brent?
I have no idea. I have no idea if that's...
So eat a Caesar salad every night this month, and you'll feel better.
All right. Yeah.
I doubt that's the
sure.
case.
I don't think that's exactly what you're supposed to, but... Anyway, it is Friday, and I am here with my good friends Daniel Kaiser and Brent Adams. I'm your host, Tony Grice, for today. And we got a question from one Mr. Duncan Ray, and he is
That sounds like a breakfast
Duncan Ray
food.
47.
You just saying that because of Dunkin' Donuts.
You're just saying that
maybe
because something always sounds like something else.
Hey, can I? Yeah, I'll have a cup of coffee and a Duncan Ray. It sounds good.
Sounds like a weapon in like a, fucking...
A food
the
fight.
Ratchet and
Van Damme
Clank or
movie.
something like that. Well, I was going to say like a Ratchet and Clank, the Duncan Ray. It's like a ray that picks you up and dunks you in a tank of water or something.
I thought it was like something from the Time Cop sequel.
Maybe.
That we deserved but never got.
Were there 46 other Duncan Rays on Twitter, by the way, before this guy signed up?
That
Like,
is an interesting question,
It is a
actually.
good question. All right. Well, so anyway, Duncan, his question for us was, with the huge success of GT Academy, having taken gamers to racer winners, where else can gamers be a talent pool for industries? So he's, of course, talking about GT Academy, which is the Gran Turismo Academy, which if you don't know, basically for quite a few years now, they have taken gamers, I mean, just pure gamers, not in any way doing any real racing, had them play Gran Turismo, and to the level where they trained on the machines and eventually transitioned them from that into real cars, and they ended up legitimately winning like big races. Like I think the
Did they go to Le
24-hour
Mans?
Le Mans and stuff. Yeah, I think they've even won it, or at least come like in second and third. Like they've placed very well. And so basically the idea here is if we can do that with racing games, what are maybe some other video games that might benefit from this? So, Brent, you want to kind of start us off? Do you have any ideas?
The first thing that jumped to mind, and I think this is just I don't know, maybe kind of like wish
Murder
fulfillment
simulators.
for. I mean, obviously, come on,
Murder.
come on. I mean, like I want a game that's like, all right, you got caught. Like, okay, you murdered those people. You got caught because you had hair and fibers. You should have been wearing a skull cap. You should have burned your clothes afterwards so they couldn't
hair
get
and
those
fiber
fibers.
achievement unlocked.
I feel like you don't need to be playing a game.
My
Brent.
wife is obsessed. I say obsessed. My wife is very interested in like
Crime scenes.
forensic investigation and
I
things like
think
that. She
obsessed is
watches
fair.
tons of those crime shows. So like
I'm not
I
sure
watch
there's a
those
day I've
shows.
ever come over to your house where one has not been playing.
They're all, I mean,
walked
she's
in.
always like watching that stuff.
Better
And,
cover your tracks, Brent.
like that's the thing. Like I know to a fact that she probably could kill me and get away with it. Like she's got enough knowledge under her belt now. She knows how the cops operate. So I watch my stuff.
You stay on the straight and narrow there, Brent. Don't
Anyway, fortunately, she loves the non-straight and narrow, me, so it works out okay for her. My point, though, is this. Maybe it's just the generation that I'm a part of, and the fact that Top Gun, for better or worse, was such a big part of our lives early on. But I fighter jet
zone.
pilot,
Well, I mean,
flying a
didn't
fucking
tons
jet
of
with a
people
video
learn
game.
from Microsoft Flight?
Well, yeah,
Wasn't
and that
like
was what I was about to say. I mean, but
Flight
that's
Simulator, yeah.
that's already that's the
that's
first
a
thing I jumped
predated
to.
this, yeah.
But that's already there. I mean, like if you're in a flight school, chances are you've used simulators, which are basically hyper accurate, video games that.
Have you ever gotten to beapilot.com?
But I have
feel
played
like
a
that
ton
one
of.
might
But
be
I have
taken.
played a ton of Microsoft Flight Simulator over the years. But
Right.
anyway, that's one of the most obvious things that jumped to my mind. Something related that is a little less obvious, but that I know that there are video games. I say video games. I know that there are game-like simulations and things that exist for is air traffic control. I remember we used to have one. My dad's an air traffic controller. We used to have one on our computer. This was like I don't know, 386 days,
Wow.
early PC gaming kind of shit. But we had some kind of, I don't know if it was actual like training software, but I think it was called like Tracon or something. But anyway, it was something kind of like that, like quasi video game, quasi training for air traffic control related stuff. And you could definitely teach somebody how to do that job effectively through a game like that.
Yeah.
DK, what about you? Any ideas?
Yeah, well, I will say that I was fortunate to be involved with the latest GT Academy. That's what I went up to New York City for recently. I was actually a judge on they're placing more emphasis on the media aspects of the GT Academy winner this year, meaning that they should not be just versed in the digital and real-life handling of vehicles, but they should also be media savvy and able to handle themselves in front of the camera. So I was actually the lead interviewer and judge for that aspect of the latest GT Academy, which I was excited to be a part of. But I was really encouraged to learn that it has produced so much success, and that is a definitive way of saying that these skills and this knowledge translates into a real world type of thing. You've mentioned the flight simulator thing. Now, one area where I think it's not so much games, but in the medical field, there's a lot of stuff that is happening, and I've actually been at a lot of events and done stuff with some people who have produced simulators that would be surgery simulators and whatnot to be able to perform, very important and critical like heart surgeries, but also
give the opportunity to like practice and understand.
Yes,
what's going to be involved, what you're going to see,
Yes, and there isn't per se. I mean, there are some games that kind of dabble with some of that. They're not mainstream games. Unfortunately or fortunately, however you look at it, I think that the first-person shooter genre has probably done the most in terms of training completely. Like, if you take somebody who's never played a first-person shooter and take somebody who has, and then put both of them into the military, the person who's played the first-person shooter probably has a little bit more awareness of the types of guns, the type of ammunition, the type of this stuff. So for
you might almost be able to argue, though, too, a lot of the stuff they've learned on the negative side as well, though, too. So, I mean, like some things it might put them at a little bit of advantage, some it might...
Exactly, but they're more aware, I would say, is hard to deny. Yeah. Actually, it's kind of funny, but like one of my favorite games of the Xbox generation was Full Spectrum Warrior, which was actually originally developed as a military simulator to teach proper protocol, tactics, positioning, and whatnot. And I actually ended up loving that game.
I thought
it was neat,
It was a fantastic game.
And that's just an area where, to answer this question, I think that is something that has been kind of proven, I don't know.
Well, and they've had that America's Army game for quite a few years now, which is made by the Army.
Right.
It is developed by them. Now, it's definitely much more realistic than something like a Call of Duty, but it's also
Arma than a Call of Duty.
Yeah, but it's also nowhere near like simulation. But there are a lot of concepts, and they really do try to teach things more so in that like realistic like things that could help you later on.
Yeah.
I tell you something you mentioned about with the medical thing, just real quick. The medical thing that you were talking about, DK, is it was pretty famously like maybe 5 or 6 years ago. There was a couple of stories floating around where they were saying basically people that grew up on video games had a much easier time using the newer equipment because the older doctors learned to use with physical touch. They did the work, but them having the usage of how to use an analog controller, how to use buttons, and use your fingers exactly. That really translated well. So definitely there is some precedent.
Is that surgery simulator like is that surgery simulator game that's on PC? Is that like? I've never.
I don't think it's that. Yeah, I almost think it's like a more advanced version of that DS and Wii game, where you like make the incision and pull things out, and you can't. Essentially, it's a very dumbed down.
It's not to surgery what like a flight simulator by Microsoft is to flight, but there's also Cooking Mama. Let's not forget that you got to learn how to cook. But also,
what about stuff like camping skills, like survival skills? Like, could you play a game that teaches you like how to survive in the wild, like like where to look for certain kinds of grasses.
Yeah, you could, and actually that would be.
That you could eat.
I think there are some games that kind of.
There probably are some that kind of.
There's some games that do that, but that actually is an interesting premise. Like I would like to learn how to survive in the wild, and there's shows that there's Bear
Survivor Man.
What's his name? Bear
Man versus Wild.
Yeah.
Bear Grylls.
So like there's some. Cool...
I could have told you to drink your own urine though. If that was.
I do that every week.
There's a whole different reason he wants to do that, though.
No, but like that would be interesting. But one thing I would say though is that the advancement of the artificial intelligence has gotten so pronounced that people are like I just recently read a story on ESPN. I guess that one of the guys, I don't remember what team he was or which player it was, but one of the defensive backs whose job is to guard wide receivers was using Madden as a way to kind of study the habits of his opponents and the quarterbacks and whatnot, because those type of simulations are very much based on percentages and data.
Yeah.
Now, baseball is the sport that is so largely based on data. So I mean, you have
this is the Moneyball concept, right?
Yes, and this is like if you watch a modern day baseball game, I mean, they put the shift on for different batters. They reposition the defense based on where a guy has a propensity to hit the ball, and this used to not be the case, but they're using data to actually affect. And any baseball game you go to these days, I mean, there's data-driven decisions that are made. And so this guy, though, is football and a defensive guy, so it was kind of interesting for people. But I would say that those sports simulations, considering their amount of data and how they gauge their success on the ability to predict stuff, which is why every year you see Madden predicts the playoffs, Madden predicts the Super Bowl, blah blah blah. But yeah, I mean, that would be an area too that would help you, but not be. I mean, obviously, there's a physical prowess that needs to happen in order to execute.
That's what I was going to say. That's where I think there's a slight difference to. That's a slight difference to like the GT Academy stuff we were talking about, where you literally could drive. Like if you get the wheel and pedals set up for like GT, then you're doing. I mean, you still have to have that. Yeah. You have to have that. You have to be brave to get in the car and make it go that fast and take a corner at that you don't have to do it in your home, but you're still physically doing the same action. Whereas in football, it's like you can know all of the stats that you need to know, but if you don't also have
the physical dexterity to play
behind
the game.
Exactly, it's a little different. Whereas I think like with a flight simulator or a racing simulator, I really think that is really close to. Much more close to the end result than.
It's more about you operating a machine than.
But I do agree that the sporting thing is a great, tie-in. It's a great thing for them to do in addition to all their other training.
That does bring me to a quick point that the potential for a wedding night simulator is. And I will tell you right now that weddingnightsimulator.com is available. I just checked.
I'm
why,
so
right?
happy to know that. I really am.
Nobody would buy that. All right. So that was a good question. I think great question from Duncan. And anyway, it's the end of the week. So make sure you get us some old questions on the old Twitter at twitter.com/ /EpicBattleAxe. And of course, make sure you're checking us out on YouTube and check us out on the weekend edition as well. We have some of our little behind-the-scenes commentary and stuff, along with the content from this previous week. So
there you go.
Definitely check that out. And with that, we will see you on Monday.
Yeah.
Peace.
Peace. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Peace.
Industries is spelled wrong in this tweet.
Camping. I wonder if any of those hunting simulators actually makes it easier to hunt deer or something.
Well, I would say that it does kind of show you this is where you want to hit the target.
It teaches you things like taking your breath into consideration, taking the wind into consideration. But it doesn't. It's not the same as holding a gun up.
It can't be the same as translating to okay, in the game I have I hold my breath and I just I move the analog stick to the right. There's
I always remember hearing that first story. I remember it was back in the 98 or something when the first person that had never flown a plane in his life but trained on Flight Simulator and went and never having flown in his life went and got a pilot's license just from playing that game.
Right. Did he use beapilot.com?
He did not. And
But he should have.
But he still got his license, so I don't think he really did.
Hey.
Right.
Hey, it sounds like his career really took off.
Oh, Jesus.
Is it Friday yet?